My name is Ava Thompson, and I'm 28 years old. For nearly 3 decades, I've grown used to feeling invisible in my own family. To my parents, Susan and Mark, I was always the responsible one, the one who could take care of herself, and therefore didn't need to be coddled. They run a small bakery in the suburbs of Pittsburgh called Thompson's Oven. Everyone in town knows the place. The warm loaves of bread, the soft, cream-filled cookies, but no one knew me. The one behind the counter through all those childhood years, cleaning up while other kids played, doing homework behind the oven, in the scent of butter and sugar. Brandon, my younger brother 2 years my junior, was different. He was the golden child. He didn't have to be brilliant or hardworking. One smile from him could melt the room. When Brandon forgot his homework, it was because he was under stress. When I earned a scholarship, it was just because she's always been studious. He was loved unconditionally. I had to work for every scrap of recognition. I didn't complain. I put myself through school on a scholarship, graduated, rented a modest apartment in the city, worked in marketing at a furniture company, and built my life, piece by piece. I wasn't flashy, but I was disciplined. No debt, no reckless spending. I always believed, if no one hands you a door, build your own. The only person who ever made me feel unconditionally loved was my grandfather, Walter. He was the only one who truly listened to me, who remembered my birthday without a calendar, and who once told me I had vision. When he passed away 3 years ago, I felt like my heart shattered into 100 pieces. But what shocked me even more came during the reading of his will. He had left me a trust fund. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to help me buy my first apartment or open a small coffee shop. Something I had dreamed of for years. There were conditions, though. I could only access the trust once I turned 31, and even then, only for specific purposes like housing, education, or starting a legitimate business. That seemed fair to me. I've never been the impulsive type, so I let the trust sit untouched, like a quiet promise between me and him. At the time, I thought everything would stay peaceful. But then, Brandon got engaged. Everything shifted the moment he showed up with a sparkling ring on his finger, and a woman so seemingly perfect it was like the whole family fell under a spell. Delilah Carter, 27 years old, walked into our house with a brown sugar smile, soft waves cascading over her shoulders and a voice like warm honey. She didn't have to try to be adored. Just one charming greeting, one tilt of her head, and my mother was already laughing, my father noticeably at ease. During the welcome dinner, as everyone raised their glasses to toast the happy news, Delilah sat directly across from me. Her eyes sparkled, mischievous, like she'd already rehearsed what came next. When the laughter quieted down, she suddenly turned toward me and spoke in a voice light as a feather on water. "Ava, I heard your grandfather left you a trust fund. Have you thought about helping Brandon? I mean, a wedding is such a big milestone, right?" I paused for a second. No one had ever brought that up at family dinners, at least not in front of me. I set my wine glass down, doing my best to keep a polite smile. Yeah, he did leave a fund. But I can't access it until I reach the age requirement, and I already have plans for it. Delilah tilted her head. Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes, at that moment I realized, weren't those of a guest making friendly conversation. They were the eyes of someone calculating their next move. Like she had just knocked on the first door in a carefully planned campaign she fully expected to win. "Oh, of course," she replied smoothly. "I just thought, if someone in the family could help, Brandon's wedding could be truly perfect. Starting a new life isn't easy, you know." I smiled faintly and nodded, but deep down, I was uneasy. Everyone else seemed oblivious to the shift in tone. Or maybe they chose to ignore it. I thought it was just an offhand comment, a throwaway remark made over a cheerful dinner. But then I caught the way Delilah's gaze held on to mine for a heartbeat longer before she turned to clink glasses with someone else. And I knew, without a doubt, she wasn't joking. And from that moment on, I should have known. The nightmare was only just beginning. After that evening, I thought the trust fund topic would fade like a bad joke. But not even a week later, Delilah showed up again. This time at my uncle's backyard barbecue in Cranberry Township. While everyone sat under the porch roof, munching on burgers and chatting about the wedding plans, Delilah pulled her chair closer to mine, her floral dress fluttering in the breeze. "Ava," she said, her voice low enough for only the two of us to hear. "I don't mean to bother you, but I've been working on the wedding budget. Brandon mentioned you might have a little extra set aside. Is that true?" I set my iced water on the wooden table, my eyes still following the kids chasing each other on the grass. "I don't have extra. That trust isn't accessible until I turn 31, and even if it were, it wouldn't be for someone else's wedding." Delilah let out a laugh, no longer the sweet tone from before, but something hushed and sharp. "Yeah, I get it. It's just, Brandon's under a lot of pressure. My family wants us to have the wedding at a nice venue, but we're struggling a bit. I just thought if you could help? Just a small part. It'd be a lot more meaningful than letting that money sit untouched for another 3 years." I turned to look directly at her. "It's not just sitting there, Delilah. I have plans for it, and I'm under no obligation to pay for anyone's wedding." Her eyes didn't flinch, but her smile paused for a beat. "Oh, I didn't mean to pressure you. I just thought you're part of Brandon's family." "Family?" I bit the inside of my cheek to stop myself from laughing. Strange how someone who's only been in my brother's life for a few months could talk about family like it was a badge of honor. I left the party early that day. When I got home, I checked my phone and saw a message from my mom. "Delilah spoke with me. She's just worried about Brandon. Don't be too harsh on her." I didn't reply. Every time I stayed silent, people assumed I was being agreeable. But this time I was simply wondering, if I keep yielding, how much more will they expect? About 2 weeks later, I agreed to attend a brunch Delilah organized with a few of her close friends. Brandon said it'd be good for building a sister-in-law relationship. I said yes, partly to see what they were planning, partly out of curiosity. The brunch was held at a French-style cafe in Shadyside. I arrived 5 minutes late. When I walked in, Delilah and 3 of her friends were seated around the table, all dressed like they were headed to a royal wedding. "Ava, you're here," Delilah beamed. "Come sit right here." Before I even took a sip of orange juice, the conversation was already being steered, very intentionally, toward money. A woman named Madison sighed. "I wish I had a fund like Ava's. If it were me, I'd invest in my family, help out the people who matter most." Another chimed in. "Exactly. Weddings are a big deal. Once you're in the family, well, what's yours is everyone's, right?" I set my glass down and looked straight at Delilah. "Thanks for the breakfast. But if this meeting was a setup to manipulate me, I think I'll excuse myself." Delilah blinked. "Ava? I didn't ask them to say any of that. I just told my friends I was stressed. I'm sorry if you felt uncomfortable." I stood up, keeping my voice calm. "Delilah, whether I have money or not is my business, and I won't let anyone, your friends included, put pressure on me about it." I left the cafe. Again, that evening, Brandon called. "I really don't want you two to be at odds," he said, sounding worn out. "I think Delilah's just anxious about the wedding." Being anxious is one thing, Brandon, but constantly circling back to the idea that I should pay for your wedding? That's not anxiety anymore. "But you have—" I cut him off. "No, I don't, not yet, and even if I did, I don't owe it to anyone." Brandon exhaled. "Delilah just wants to feel like part of the family." I replied, voice cold. Then maybe she should start by respecting the people in that family. And I hung up. That Friday night, just after I got home from work, my mom called. Ava, I know you feel like you're under pressure, but Delilah just wants to be accepted. She's not trying to cause trouble. Trouble? I let out a quiet laugh, though my chest felt hollow. I never said she was malicious, Mom. But that money is mine. Just because I haven't used it doesn't mean it's up for grabs. Mom went silent for a long moment. I just think, maybe if you shared a little, it'd ease the tension in the family. Ended the call, then sat quietly on the couch. The soft glow from the lamp lit the white walls around me, reflecting the same question looping in my mind. Am I being too cold? Am I clinging to something I don't even need right now? I thought walking away from that brunch would be the end of it, but I underestimated Delilah. Instead of pushing directly, she shifted tactics. In the following weeks, during every family gathering, she stopped confronting me head-on. She switched to sly, floating comments. Gentle on the surface, but sharp underneath. It's such a blessing when someone in the family has the means to chase their dreams, she said one evening, as we sat around Grandma's table, eating pumpkin pie. If I had that kind of fortune, I'd use it to care for loved ones. Bring everyone closer. She didn't look at me, but the eyes at the table did. Another time, while flipping through a sample wedding album, Delilah gently brushed her hand over a page featuring a lavishly decorated ceremony hall and sighed, Brandon and I love this venue, but we know it's just a dream. We don't want to be a burden on anyone. I set my coffee cup on the table and gave a faint smile. Who told you you're being a burden? Delilah turned toward me, her eyes wide, as if offended. Oh, I didn't mean it like that. I was just thinking out loud. That's when I realized she had switched to a Cold War strategy. Meanwhile, Brandon was more clearly siding with her. One night, I got a call from him. His voice wasn't confrontational, but something had changed. Ava, I've been thinking a lot, he started. I know you have plans for the trust, but I think I deserve a say too. We are family, after all. I raised an eyebrow. What are you saying, Brandon? That you have some kind of claim over the trust Grandpa left specifically to me? Not a claim, he quickly replied. But Delilah and I are in a tough spot right now. Just a small portion could make a big difference. I gripped the phone tighter. I've said this before. The trust isn't accessible yet, and I already have my own plans for it. Brandon was quiet for a while. You keep saying your plans. But what about everyone else? What about the family? My mom, who had always been gentle with me, was beginning to shift her tone, too. One afternoon, while I was helping at the bakery, she pulled me aside in the kitchen, away from the customer's view. I know you don't want to feel pressured, she whispered, but think about it. If your grandfather were still alive, would he want you to cling to that money? Or would he be proud to see you help your brother on his big day? I looked at her, heart sinking. I'm not clinging. I'm honoring what he left me. Because he trusted I'd use it wisely. Not because someone cornered me into it. She let out a soft sigh. Sometimes. Keeping peace in the family matters more than who's right or wrong. I gave a dry smile. The problem is, everyone's using peace as an excuse to push me into sacrificing. Even my dad, normally quiet, decided to weigh in. That Sunday evening, during dinner, he pulled his chair closer and said, I know you're a responsible person, eyes still fixed on his plate of grilled meat. But sometimes responsibility isn't just about taking care of yourself. It's about helping the people you love, even when it's not part of the plan. I felt surrounded, not by knives or shouts, but by soft, calculated words that peeled back your skin one layer at a time. Everyone kept saying it was out of love. But why did it feel like I was being cornered into giving up everything? That night, I sat alone in my apartment, under the soft yellow glow of my lamp, and opened Grandpa's old letter. His handwriting was shaky, but still intact. Ava, if there ever comes a time when people around you don't understand you, remember, Grandpa does. I left you this money because I believe you'll know what's best. I folded the letter, placed it gently on my chest, and closed my eyes. I knew I was doing the right thing, but the feeling of being isolated by my own family sat in my throat like a stone. Maybe this wasn't the climax yet, but I knew one thing for sure. If they pushed any further, I wasn't staying silent. That Saturday night, I stopped by Mom's house to pick up a few old things still in the garage. As I walked into the living room, I saw Delilah sitting there with my mom. They were drinking tea, chatting like old friends. I gave a polite nod, planning to head straight to the garage. But Delilah stood up. "Ava," she said, her tone no longer sweet or roundabout. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." I turned back and caught my mother's eyes. She was staring into her teacup, like she wished she could vanish into it. "You've said no, and I understand that," Delilah continued. "But I have to be honest. I'm really disappointed. You have the power to help us start our life in a good place, and instead, you're choosing to keep it to yourself. I don't want to use this word, but honestly, you're being selfish." I froze. There was a moment of silence so tight it could crack glass. My mother didn't say a word. "Selfish?" I repeated, each syllable grinding out like stone. "You're talking about money I haven't even touched, left to me by my grandfather with specific conditions. And you're calling me selfish for not breaking the rules so you can have a lavish wedding?" Delilah crossed her arms, chin slightly raised. "It's not lavish. We just want one special day to start our life. And I think, if you really cared about family, you'd do the right thing." I didn't respond. I just looked at my mom, but she stayed silent. She didn't take my side. 3 days later, Brandon texted me, asking to have lunch at a small Mexican place near my office. I hesitated but eventually agreed. Maybe I was still holding out hope for an apology. A shred of conscience, a sign that my younger brother was still the person I once trusted. But when I walked into the restaurant, I saw Delilah sitting at the table too, notebook resting on her lap. Her eyes sparkled, like I had just walked into a contract negotiation. "You made it!" Brandon stood up. "We already ordered for you. Hope you still like enchiladas." I sat down, quietly watching them. This didn't feel like a family meal. It felt like a transaction. After a few pleasantries, Delilah opened her notebook. "So, we've given it a lot of thought, and I think we can meet in the middle." I tilted my head. "Meet in the middle?" Brandon jumped in, visibly tense. "What we mean is, if you can't give all of it, maybe you could give half? You'd still keep the rest. That way everyone wins." "You're asking me to split in half a trust I haven't even been allowed to access yet, correct?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. Delilah nodded, as if the request was completely reasonable. I leaned back in my chair, smiling faintly. "Thanks for taking the time to plan my future for me. But the answer is still no." Delilah frowned. "You really won't compromise? Not even a little?" I looked her straight in the eye. "I don't owe any compromises to people who've spent weeks pressuring and manipulating me." Brandon exhaled. "Ava, I thought you were the one who cared about family. And you," I said coldly, "are selling out your sister to please your fiancé." I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. The next day, my mom called me over for what she said would be a calm conversation. When I arrived, everyone was there. Dad, Mom, Brandon, Delilah, and me. A full-blown family meeting. They sat around the dining table like we were mediating a property dispute. My dad started. "Ava, we're not trying to pressure you, but the whole family feels, if you contributed part of the trust, It would relieve a lot of tension, my mom added. Just a little, as a sign that you support and respect your brother's happiness. Brandon said softly, "You're in control of everything. One click, and it's done. I know you can do it." I looked at each of them. Not one person asked if I was okay. Not one asked how I felt after being called selfish. They just wanted to fix the issue. And the issue was me not giving them money. I stood up. If this is what you call family, then at the very least, remember, family is where you're respected, not demanded from. I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. That night, after the exhausting and disappointing family meeting, I came home feeling something I'd never quite felt before. Angry, hurt, but strangely clear. There were no more tears, no more self-doubt. Just one sentence pounding in my head like a drumbeat. They won't stop, unless I make them stop. The next morning, I opened my laptop and typed into the search bar, Estate and Family Harassment Attorney, Pittsburgh. I scheduled a meeting with Melanie Grant, a sharp attorney in her 40s with eyes that made it hard for anyone to lie for long. When I walked into her office that Tuesday afternoon, I said one sentence. My family is trying to force me to hand over a trust I'm not even legally allowed to touch, and they don't know I've started collecting evidence. Melanie nodded and motioned for me to sit. Tell me everything. From the beginning. And I didn't. Not skipping a single detail. From Delilah's subtle hints to the lunch where she opened her notebook like she was proposing a business deal, to the family meeting where everyone stared at me like I was the only thing standing in the way of happiness. Melanie didn't interrupt. She just took notes and occasionally frowned. When I got to the part where Delilah directly asked about the trust's value and how her friends started messaging me with comments like, "People with money should share it," Melanie closed her notebook. "Ava, this is no longer just a family matter," she said. "This is a pattern of harassment. It shows signs of coercion and emotional harm." I swallowed hard. So, what can I do now? We'll send Miss Delilah a cease and desist letter. If she continues, I'll escalate this to court. In the meantime, I want you to start collecting all evidence. Texts, emails, voice recordings if needed. And under no circumstance should you meet with them alone again without a witness. But before I could take action, Delilah made the first move. 3 days later, I got a message from an old college friend. "Ava, I just saw Delilah post a story about a future sister-in-law who has money but never knows how to share. Everyone knows she's talking about you." I checked Instagram. She didn't mention me by name, but every word was aimed squarely in my direction. Some people don't understand what family means. Not everyone with money has a heart. The comments were full of sympathy, judgment, and mockery. Some people even tagged Delilah, wishing her strength in such a selfish family. I was stunned. But then, the shock gave way to determination. I sent screenshots of everything to my attorney, Melanie. She simply replied, "Preserve them. Don't respond. I'm drafting the letter." I thought this was just a social media stunt. But the bigger blow came the following week. The head of HR at my company called me into his office. "Ava, I need to ask you something," he said, his face tense. "Someone called claiming to be a relative and asked to verify your salary and income records." I was stunned. Did they leave a name? No name. Female voice. Polite tone. But way too many questions. The moment I left that office, I knew exactly who was behind it. That evening, I called Melanie. "She's trying to dig into my financial records through my job. Is there anything worse than this?" Melanie's voice cut sharp. "Good. Now we have a clear basis for the formal cease and desist. And if she takes one more step, I'll proceed with filing a civil harassment claim." The next morning, the letter was sent. The wording was simple, but firm. Any attempts to access, disclose, or interfere with the personal or financial affairs of our client, Ms. Ava Thompson, will be treated as harassment, invasion of privacy, and defamation. and may result in serious legal consequences. I hit send on the email with a copy to Brandon. I didn't say a word, no apology, no explanation. I never expected the turning point in this whole battle would be a misdirected message. It happened on a Monday morning, just as I was making coffee at work. My phone buzzed non-stop. Messages were flying in from the family group chat, normally just a place for bakery updates and occasional photos of baked goods. The first message was from Brandon, sent straight into the family chat, which included me, our parents, Delilah, and 2 aunts from Dad's side. Delilah, I can't believe you sent that stuff to your friends. You called Ava a walking safe and said Mom and Dad would pressure her into giving in? Are you serious right now? Then came 3 screenshots, all from Brandon's phone. I froze behind the coffee counter. The screenshots were texts Delilah had sent in a group chat titled Bride Squad. One message read, "Just let Robert and Susan do their thing. Ava will crack soon enough. She's not used to being cornered." Another said, "Brandon's worried, but I'm not. Half that trust fund will be my wedding gift. Once the extended family chimes in, she'll fold." The last one hit me like a punch to the chest. Pretending to respect Ava is exhausting. But it works. She loves being treated kindly. So, I fake it. No big deal. I don't know what made Brandon look through those messages, but it was clear he meant to send them to Delilah privately and accidentally drop them into the family group. For the next 3 minutes, the chat went dead silent. Then my mom texted, "Delilah, what is this about?" My dad followed up, "Delilah, are these messages real?" No response. A minute later, Delilah finally replied, "You're all misunderstanding. I was just venting to close friends. Those messages don't reflect how I really feel." I didn't say anything. I just left the group chat. That night, Brandon called me. His voice was trembling slightly. "Ava, I'm sorry. I saw the messages when Delilah left her phone charging on the kitchen counter. I didn't mean to blow everything up like that. I was just so angry. My hands were shaking and I hit the wrong button." I didn't respond. Didn't know she thought that way. I thought she was just stressed about the wedding. But after reading what she wrote, I felt ashamed. I closed my eyes and kept my tone steady. "I warned you so many times." "I know. I was blind. I thought you were just trying to hold on to the money, not that you were hurt." I let out a cold laugh. What I've been trying to protect, Brandon, is my self-respect. The money? That's something Delilah was never worthy of touching. In the days that followed, the illusion shattered. Delilah tried to do damage control by calling every relative. She claimed the messages were just jokes in a private chat, and that Ava is blowing this out of proportion because of pride. But no one believed her, especially after they had all seen her actual words. One of my aunts, who had once messaged me to be more understanding, now sent me an apology. I was wrong. I shouldn't have taken sides without knowing the full story. A cousin who had commented publicly on Delilah's Facebook post quietly unliked it and messaged me. "Ava, I'm really sorry I trusted the wrong person. I didn't need to speak up. I didn't need to seek revenge. The truth did it for me." Delilah stopped showing up to family gatherings. Her social media went silent. The sweet stories, the ring photos, the countdown to the big day, all vanished like they'd never existed. My parents, they changed too. Not with direct apologies, but through softer glances when I walked into a room. Through the way they stopped mentioning the wedding. Through the silence that felt more like remorse than distance. As for me, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt lighter. Because in the end, I didn't have to scream to defend myself. I just had to wait for the truth to speak. 3 days after my conversation with Brandon, I got a short text. "I've ended things with Delilah. I'm starting therapy. I need to understand how I let it go this far." I stared at the message on my screen, not sure how to feel. Not victorious, not angry anymore, just hollow. Maybe because deep down, I always knew this day would come. Brandon had once been the little brother who chased after me, fought over toys, called me the best sister ever whenever I baked cookies. But then he grew up, drawn to a kind of spotlight handed out more easily than truth. And when that light faded, he finally realized how long he'd been standing in the wrong place. Delilah vanished completely. No calls, no apologies, no public explanation. A friend from my yoga group told me she'd canceled the wedding venue and returned the dress. Relatives stopped referring to her as the future sister-in-law. All that remained was a void, like a smudge on a family photo that never got framed. My parents started changing in the smallest ways. My mom would ask what I wanted to eat over the weekend. My dad sent me articles about real estate investing with sincere advice. There was still a distance between us, but at least now, it wasn't built from pressure or expectations. It was caution rooted in regret. One Sunday evening, when I stopped by the bakery to see them, my mom handed me a box of ginger cookies. My favorite since childhood, but something she rarely made because of how time-consuming they were. She gently placed the box in my hands. "I'm sorry," she said softly, "for not listening to you sooner." I looked at her. "I don't need you to undo the past. I just need you to understand that I wasn't wrong for protecting what's mine." She nodded. "I understand. And I'm proud of you for doing something I never had the courage to do." I said nothing more, because I didn't need to. Some forgiveness doesn't require words. It only needs someone to truly listen and understand, not out of guilt, but out of choice. And that's enough. I began setting new boundaries. I didn't show up at every family dinner. I stopped responding to messages that felt more like interrogation than care, and I no longer felt the need to prove anything to anyone. The trust fund still sits untouched in the account, waiting for the day I turned 31. But now, I no longer see it as a reward or a burden. It's simply a symbol of trust. One passed down from my grandfather, and one I continue to build with myself. I'm in no rush to use it. I've always been capable of building my life with my own two hands. And if the day comes when I decide to use that money, it won't be because someone forced me to. It'll be because I choose to. At the right time, for the right reasons. Brandon is still in therapy. Sometimes he sends me a short message sharing something from his sessions, or just writes, "What do you think if I go back to study finance?" I'm not sure if he's changed completely, but I do know he's starting over. And that's the only thing I needed to see from the brother who once turned his back on me. As for me, after everything, I don't see myself as someone who won. I'm just someone who stayed steady through a storm. And from all that seemed broken, I learned 3 simple, precious truths. That family should never cost you your sense of self. That kindness needs boundaries. And that true peace can't exist if it comes at the price of your own values. One early autumn morning, I stood at the door of my small apartment, holding a cup of coffee, the chilly breeze running through my unbrushed hair. I smiled, thinking of the future. I still don't know exactly what I'll do with the trust fund. Maybe a small bookshop in the neighborhood, maybe that unfinished master's degree I still dream about. Maybe something I haven't even imagined yet. But now, I'm no longer in a hurry to define success or prove anything. This journey taught me to value inner strength more than outside validation. And maybe the most important thing isn't the money my grandfather left, but how I choose to live in a way that honors his faith in me. Whatever lies ahead, I know I'll walk forward with my dignity intact and a calm no one can take away from me. What do you think about Ava's choices and the way she stood up to family pressure? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, inspiring stories about family, boundaries, and self-respect.